Nintendo recently took down the online multiplayer capabilities of the Wii U and 3DS, only allowing players to connect to the internet in Pokemon Bank. This means, as of recording this, you're still able to legitimately send Pokemon from as far back as Ruby and Sapphire to Pokemon Home, but it's unknown how long this will remain the case. Once Pokemon Bank goes down, you'll no longer be able to transfer these Pokemon in a legitimate manner. So, while Pokemon Bank is still up, let's go over some of the most unique Pokemon that will soon be impossible to legitimately obtain. Starting off in Generation 3, Pokemon Colosseum might actually have the most amount of unique Pokemon here. Not only can all 48 of the Shadow Pokemon be shiny, or all 51 if we're including the ones exclusive to the e-reader and the Japanese version of Pokemon Colosseum, but they're also granted a unique ribbon upon being purified, the National Ribbon. Oh god, that means when Bank goes down, the Ribbon Challenge won't be legitimately doable anymore. XD's Shadow Pokemon are a bit more interesting in my opinion. They still get the National Ribbon, but while they can't be shiny, they get unique moves that they can't otherwise learn. Most of them are pretty lame, being stuff like Charm or Refresh, but the legendary birds get extra sensory, and Lugia gets Psycho Boost and Feather Dance. Both Colosseum and XD also have unique Pokemon tied to Mount Battle. Clear it in Colosseum, and you can get a Ho-Oh with a unique Original Trainer, or OT, and a unique Trainer ID, while in XD, you can get one of the Johto starters with an Egg move and their respective Elemental Hyper Beam, the latter being quite interesting because normally you can only get those moves on fully evolved starter Pokemon. Colosseum also has a couple of other noteworthy Pokemon here, found in the bonus discs that came with the game. The bonus disc exclusive to the Japanese version of Colosseum is the neatest, as it gives you not only a Pikachu, but a Celebi, both with unique OTs and IDs. You can also get a Master Ball that's transferable to your main Colosseum save file, allowing you to get one as soon as you unlock Purification. In conjunction with the Infinite Pokeballs glitch, this makes shiny hunting for Shadow Pokemon way easier in the Japanese version of Colosseum. Meanwhile, the American bonus disc just comes with a Jirachi, no Pikachu or bonus Master Ball, which is not only really lame, but also doesn't make much sense. Celebi is tied to the purification process for Shadow Pokemon, so it made sense to give it away in the bonus disc. But Jirachi? I mean, it's still a mythical Pokemon, like Celebi, but this must have been fueled by marketing, since the bonus disc also has a trailer for the Jirachi movie on it. One neat aspect about the Jirachi that doesn't apply to the Celebi is that this Jirachi can actually be shiny. It's an absolute pain to hunt, however, with each reset requiring you to start a new save file in Ruby or Sapphire and play far enough in to get the Pokedex. Just, be careful about moving the Shadow Pokemon into anything other than home. I moved Lugia and the birds to Scarlet and Violet, and then back to home, and now I can't have them relearn Psycho Boost and Extra Sensory, which I personally feel is part of what makes them so unique. Moving on to Gen 4, we get into some stuff that's technically still obtainable, but either you already need to have downloaded certain things, or you need to engage in some shenanigans, shall we say. And, you know, actually, before we leave Gen 3, since we're going to be including this kind of stuff, I think it's fair to list two more Pokemon from Gen 3 real quick. FireRed and LeafGreen have access to Deoxys via an event item, and the Japanese version of Pokemon Emerald specifically has an event item that lets the player catch a Mew. Both of these Pokemon can be shiny, making them another set of unique hunts, but there's not much to them other than that. Getting to Gen 4 proper now, let's start with My Pokemon Ranch. As you deposit Pokemon into the titular ranch, you'll be asked to transfer a certain Pokemon over, a wanted Pokemon. If you do this, sometimes Haley will trade you one of her own Pokemon for it. These Pokemon can have TMs and egg moves already on them, but two of them are mythical Pokemon, Phione and Mew. Phione is nothing particularly special, at least in comparison to the Mew, who has Synthesis, Return, Hypnosis, and Teleport, most of these being moves it can't normally get. On top of all of this, all of Haley's Pokemon have her OT and ID, adding to their uniqueness. Some of the non-mythical Pokemon are actually pretty neat too. Her Shroomish, for example, comes with False Swipe and Spore, making it great for getting more Pokemon to fill up the ranch with. The Pokemon Ranger games also have a number of unique Pokemon in them that are transferable to the main games. All 3 Ranger games have access to Manaphy, while Ranger 2 has a special Riolu that knows Aura Sphere, and the mythical Pokemon Darkrai. In the 3rd Ranger game, we get a Heatran with Eruption, which is still the only way you can get a Heatran with the move, and another pair of mythical Pokemon, Shaman and Deoxys. Unfortunately, the Deoxys mission requires local multiplayer in order to complete, which is a shame because like with Heatran, this Deoxys gets access to some moves it still can't learn, those being Meteor Mash and Detect. The Shaman is a faithful encounter one, which means it's able to let the player get the Gracidia in certain Pokemon games. Other than that, however, it's nothing particularly special, although it's worth noting that all of the non-Manaphy Pokemon from the Ranger games also have a unique OT and ID. You can also shiny hunt the Manaphy eggs, but it's unable to be shiny in the game that received the egg, so be prepared for a lot of trading and new save files. Moving back to the main series games, HeartGold and SoulSilver have a really neat one. If you happen to have an Arceus laying around, big if, I know, you can take it to the ruins of Alph to travel to the Sinjoh ruins and nab yourself a member of the Creation Trio at level 1, an unusually low level for legendary Pokemon. In addition, nabbing Giratina through this event is the only way to get a Griseous Orb in HeartGold and SoulSilver, as the item is impossible to trade between the Gen 4 games. These Pokemon can also be shiny, so if you want to sit through the barrage of images each time you soft reset, it's not as bad as the Jirachi, but that's still going to be a few minutes every reset. Going to the 3DS games now, Pokemon Dream Radar lets the player get a whole host of legendary Pokemon as low as level 5. If you transfer them over to Black 2 or White 2 before getting your first gym badge, you can get Tornadus, Thundurus, Landorus, Dialga, Palkia, Giratina, Ho-Oh, and Lugia, all at level 5 with their hidden abilities and Inner Dream Ball, which is not only a tricky Pokeball to get, but it was also otherwise impossible to get these Pokemon in that Pokeball until Sword and Shield. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire have our old friend Deoxys available for the player to catch at the end of the Delta episode, marking the first time in the series that a mythical Pokemon is catchable without some kind of event, or the use of a cheating device or glitches. Unfortunately, this Deoxys is shiny locked, but hey, it's still a mythical Pokemon. Speaking of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, if you happen to have the demo for the games still installed on your 3DS, and or the demo for Sun and Moon, you're in luck because you can get some free Pokemon. The Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire demo offers Glalie, or if you have a Japanese 3DS, a Steelix. I believe it's specifically the console that needs to be Japanese. You can't just play the demo with Japanese text like I'm doing here. Regardless, both Pokemon have a fixed OT of the name of the trainer in the demo, which is always Orlando in most languages. Sun and Moon have a much more interesting Pokemon in Greninja with the Battle Bond ability. Prior to Scarlet and Violet nerfing the ability, Battle Bond allowed Greninja to transform into Ash Greninja after KOing an opposing Pokemon, and the only way to get a Greninja with this ability is through this demo. The Virtual Console releases of Gens 1 and 2 offer a few unusual goodies as well. In addition to unique moves from the different TM lists these games had, the Gen 1 games have a couple of interesting in-game trades that can get us some abnormally low-level Pokemon. In Red and Blue, we can catch a level 3 Pikachu in Viridian Forest, use a Thunderstone on it in order to evolve it to Raichu, and then trade said Raichu to this guy on Cinnabar Island to get a level 3 Electrode. Pokemon Yellow offers something similar, albeit with a slightly more convoluted setup. If we trade in a freshly hatched level 5 Cubone from Gold, Silver, or Crystal, we can trade that Cubone to this NPC in the underground path connecting routes 5 and 6 to get a level 5 Machamp. And I'm only realizing after the whole video was edited that I forgot to mention Celebi. Once you beat the Elite Four in specifically Crystal version, you can get the previously event-only GS Ball from the Goldenrod Pokemon Center. After letting Kurt analyze it for a day, you get the ball back and learn that something's up in Ilex Forest. Head on over to the shrine and you fight a level 30 Celebi, which can be shiny. Yeah, they let you shiny hunt this thing, it's awesome! Something else neat that's worth noting is that after getting the GS Ball back from Kurt, but before catching Celebi, if you try to enter Ilex Forest from the north, you can't. There will also be this NPC that prevents you from going too far past Celebi's shrine. I don't understand why these roadblocks are here, if there even is any reason why, but neat bit of trivia, I guess. There are numerous more Pokemon that I could talk about, between weird things like Shelder and Magnemite being able to learn the Teleport TM in Gen 1, to Patrat currently only being catchable in the wild in Gen 5, and thus that's the only way you can get a Patrat or a shiny Patrat in a Master Ball at the moment. But I wanted to keep this video limited to perhaps the most important and noteworthy Pokemon. Plus, I feel if we stray further than that, we get into more subjective territory on what's special enough to be worth noting. One last group of Pokemon I want to bring up, however, are undoubtedly the most unique of the bunch. They're the Pokemon that you made unforgettable memories with. Whether it's your first Pokemon, which I have tucked safely in home, or maybe a ridiculous solo run that you did, or a challenge run that you did while raising money for charity. Regardless of what it is, the Pokemon that you made memories with will always be the most unique Pokemon to ever exist. Let me know what unique Pokemon you're going to try and get before Bank gets shut down, and thank you for watching to the end. A big thanks to Mithril Monarch, Duna Nix, and the rest of my patrons on screen here for going the extra mile and financially supporting the channel. See you next time, everyone.